Hello there and welcome back. Video 2, Terraform and Azure. And in this video we're going to deploy the resource group, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Terraform files. And let's switch to this. Let's hide that. Terraform files. So we have 3 files that are important for now. Providers.tf, main.tf, and variables.tf. Providers.tf, that's basically providers are used to talk to any API. So providers are used to communicate against any backend you want to deploy your configuration against. This example we're going to use the Azure provider, and there are loads of other providers available as well. You can find it out on the internet. If you want to have some more in-depth information about providers, you can of course look the internet, but I thought it was important to give a very small explanation before I dive into the code, and it makes no sense perhaps for some. Then we have a main.tf file. This file basically uses the resources provided by the provider, and inside of this file you specify what you want to deploy. Right, basically if you want to deploy a virtual machine, you describe that here as a resource. So you describe how you want to have it configured, and then basically the resource in the back, the provider, does all the magic and provision it for you. And the main TF is used to deploy resources. I already mentioned that. And you can also use a layered approach. We're not doing that for now. And then we have variable files. You want to prevent hard-coded values inside of your main.tf file. So basically that's what you have. A variables.tf file, you can prevent hard-coded values. And it's a very often used approach. But the reason I created these videos is to do a little bit different approach on the variables.tf. So it's still used, but a little bit different. And it makes sense when I start opening the code editor, which we're actually going to do now. So let me go to the code editor. Let me first clean the screen here, and let's delete some stuff here. Otherwise, I'm cheating, so to speak. Not really, but let's remove some stuff so we have a fresh configuration. So in the first video we set up az.cli. You saw me log in as well. That's needed. So if you're not logged in yet, you need to do an AZ login. I think Terraform will detect that automatically anyway. So if it can't log in, it will prompt you via your browser and such. So basically what we have here, first one is the providers. I already talked about that. So the providers, very small file here at least, and I'm using one provider, Azure RM, and this is basically the version and the stuff where we going to get it from, and HashiCorp provides this provider, and we're using that. And makes sense in a second when we run a Terraform command, and you will actually see that file being downloaded and installed as such. Then we go to the main.tf. So basically here we specify what we want to deploy. So here we want to deploy a resource group, and that actually comes from this provider. So this provider, this Azure RM provider, provides a resource called this. And we'll see in a second how IntelliSense works, not for now. And basically this deploys a resource group, and to deploy a resource group you need to provide some values, right? And what we did here is prevent the hard-coded stuff, of course. So in our variables.tf we have like the RG location, the RG name, the RT text, and managed by. But here comes the different approach as well, so watch it. So in most videos that you saw online, when you open this file, the actual values were there. But if you look here, it's still a variable with a type of string with a description. So there's still no value here, right? And I did that on purpose. So basically when you run the Terraform apply state, then or the plan state, whatever, it will prompt you for input, says, oh, which resource group, with location, with text, and managed by. And to prevent this behavior, you can use a file on top of the variables.tf. And that's what I mean by environmental specific values. So for instance, I here have a dev.tf var file. When I open that file, you can see here I have the RG name. There is a lot of copy and pasting, by the way, here, or a lot of duplicate values, I would say. I would rather have like a C# language where you can prevent this a little bit, but this is what it is. And if you go here to the variables, this of course exactly needs to match what I have here. So basically what I do here, if I use these tf-vars files as an input, I can then provide all the variables that are required inside of your main.tf, right here. These are required. These are sort of forced here by the variables.tf, and you can then feed that values on the fly with the tf-vars files on top of that. So sort of a layered stack, right? And the most examples you find online is a main.tf providers and then variables, and here are the values inside. And that basically means that if you have a test environment, you need to specify all your values here. For the production environment, you need to do the same, and how many environments you have, and perhaps for this different customers even, you have lots of things to maintain, I would say, lots of code to maintain. And if you write code, you want to prevent it, right? You want to use the dry principle. Just do not repeat yourself. Try to reuse as much as you can. And this is what this series of videos is about. So this variables.tf, we're not going to use that. It's a sort of an intermediate step that we're going to use. And here inside of our dev and ACC vars, I'm going to deploy 2 environments for this example. I have different values for the specific environment. For dev, I have different values than for ACC. And that already makes this simple Terraform state already flexible, right? I could imagine more environments. And in the background, there is a concept by Terraform. It's called workspaces. Now, workspaces basically is the segregation of environments. If you use workspaces, then you will see it. I need to show it, so to speak, to let it make sense. And we do that in a second. Let's build up slowly to that. So, and the first step when you created a Terraform is a Terraform form init, right? This to initialize your state. Let's see what happens if we do that. So initializing the backend. Terraform, by the way, is based on state files. I'm not going to explain it. You can look it up on the internet, but I will show you exactly what it means when you have different environments. That's the tricky part of Terraform, that you can have a state overlap, and you don't want that, of course, per environment. And that's where the workspaces and the environments come in a second. It will make sense if we are on video 2, I would say, or 3. Let's first focus on this. So we did the Terraform init, successfully initialized, and what it says then, run a Terraform plan. Basically, this Terraform plan will work if you have sort of hard-coded your values either in here or in here. Otherwise, if you run this Terraform plan, it will prompt you for input. And what input? Specifically this RG name, this RG location, tags, and managed by, because that's the variables we're forcing here, right? So I will run it to show you what it actually does. So let's run it. And of course, I don't want this, right? I don't want this input. So I'm going to cancel out here. I'm going to clear the screen. Makes it a little bit more clean, I would say. Let's do a Terraform plan again. And now we're going to specify a tf-vars file. And perhaps there's one more thing I need to show to you, because perhaps on the left side you spotted that when I run the Terraform init, on the left side here, a .terraform folder appeared. When we open that, we will see that Azure provider actually being there, right? That was the init that looks inside of this providers and knows what is required, initializes that, downloads it and such. And that's why we have that file here now. I just want to explain that. So what we can do now is a Terraform plan and then provide this development file as an input, right? So we don't need to provide all these values at runtime. We provide them from a file, and we do that now. Let's see what happens. And I must admit, I also use different tools to program against Azure, or provision resources inside of Azure, I mean. And I would definitely say that the direct approach to ARM, so using bicep templates, I think it's the preferred approach. And why I would say that, I think it's also the fastest approach. And basically, you don't have all these state files. It's managed in a different way, and it's you have the same flexibility basically. So I think the state files of Terraform actually make it a little bit cumbersome. Now that's my personal opinion, so don't blame me or flame me for that. This is just the way I look at it. So what we did, we run a Terraform plan, and what it says, the plan says we're going to create some resources. And what kind of resources? A resource group, exactly as we specified here. But here you see the values as we expected, because those come from this file, right? Dev West Europe. So that all matches. And then the next step in a Terraform approach, as it says here as well, run a Terraform apply. So to apply the configuration in Azure. And before I do that, I log in Azure and show you that I have nothing there. Hang on. So I'm inside of my Azure portal, as you can see here on Microsoft.com, and in resource groups I have currently no resource group. So let's go back to this Terraform state, and now we run the Terraform apply. But we don't need to. We need to apply it with the TF-vars files again, because otherwise we get prompted again, right? And let's try that. Let's do that. Let's see what happens, right? That's interesting. Of course, when you run an apply, you need to specify yes. You can override that, of course, but for this demo, we're just going to assume we need to answer that with a yes, right? Imagine doing that in a pipeline. So let's run yes. Let's wait. Actually, the creation of the resource group went quite fast, to be fair. Perhaps I modified the provider, I don't know, but let's see. It's just a resource group, of course, just an empty shell. Let's refresh here a couple of times. Just hammer it, and I would say refresh the browser as well one more time, because sometimes that helps. And as you can see, it did help. So now we have a development resource group here, and if we open that resource group, we'll see some stuff here, specifically here, the environment, dev, tag 2, exactly the stuff that we provided there, right? And now comes the interesting, no, not yet. Yeah, this is the interesting part. So basically what we have now is a Terraform state file here, right? You see that file? It's basically a JSON file that describes everything that we have deployed. And then next time you run that again against Azure, it does sort of a comparison, and it knows what to change and such. And then you get prompted on the changes and you can apply them. And basically this is where I will screw up when I now run this same command, for instance, but I use the ACC vars. Just imagine I want to do that, right? Basically what happens then, it takes this Terraform TF state file and then compares that to what I have in ACC, and that doesn't match, of course. So you get in a horrible situation. And I showed you this on purpose because, and I think this is also the reason why others are not showing the more complex approach, which is more flexible. But this is where you get stuck, because basically when you run this now, you will overwrite that Terraform state file. So in a nutshell, what we need is Terraform workspaces, and that's a little bit of a different concept, and you cannot really do that with Terraform apply. You can, but we need some sort of wrapping around it now. I'm running commands in the command line, and wouldn't it be better if we had a script on top of this that manages these environments, right? So make sure that when we run the dev environment, it checks out the dev environment workspace, runs the configuration there, and then the TF state will also land up in that specific workspace instead of in the global workspace that we have now here. So basically when I should run this ACC TF-vars now, I would screw up the whole environment. I would get error messages, all kinds of changes going on, and I will screw up my Azure environment for sure. So I'm not going to do that. But I just wanted to show you sort of where you get stuck if you want to do multiple environments with the default approach. Okay, so I would say that's enough talking on that topic. So I'm back. Let's go back to this demo 2, where we try to deploy the resource group, and we have this Terraform state file now. I will delete it because I will show you the correct approach, or a different approach. I'm not saying this is wrong, by the way. I would not want to say that. We delete this Terraform log file as well. Really going to start from the basics again. And this provider I will leave, otherwise it would re-download it again. Makes no sense. So apart from that, this is fine. So, like I said, if you want to use environments, it's a little bit more tricky to do it with the command line. Otherwise, you need to run lots of commands, and if you forget something, you can still screw up the environment. So that's where you write some code, right, to prevent that. And this is an extremely simple PowerShell script. No rocket science, nothing. Just very simple, but it gets the job done, right? You can. I upload everything in GitHub, by the way. So if you want to modify it, feel free to do so. Of course, you know, just create a clone for yourself and make it more fancy, you know. I'm not showing any fancy scripts here. I'm just showing you how things get done properly, and then you can write your own beautiful code around it, right? With a zillion of checks and such. I don't have time for that for demos. Okay. So first, let's talk a little bit about this wrapper that lays on top of these Terraform states. So we have some input. So this is the target environment, which environment you want to target. Currently I have mine restricted to dev and ACC because I only have var files for that as well. I already showed that. So I will stick for that, to that I mean. Then we have an action. Do you want to apply or destroy it? You know, you want to run a Terraform apply or destroy, right? That's depends on the situation. And basically here you feed it the actual Terraform state or the folder where the state lives in. So for instance, this folder, this has a state, right? It has a main.tf, it has the variables, it has a provider, right? So Terraform will recognize that. And so basically that's the input for the script. That's it. What we do here is actually change to that specific state folder, because if you run a Terraform apply or a destroy, whatever, it expects that you run it from the folder where the main.tf and the provider and such is located. I'm sure there are tricks to prevent that, but for now let's assume that's the only way, okay? So what we do here is we set the location. If that fails, of course, we stop the whole script. It makes no sense to continue if something cannot be found. What we do then we check if the actual Terraform environment exists. Like I said, you have workspaces. And what we do here is Terraform workspaces list. So we enumerate the available workspaces. We pipe that to a for each object, because it's only two things it returns. There's no fancy looping mechanism required. We do an if statement then if it matches the target environment. So for instance, I run it with the target environment def. Then it means that if it's found inside of the workspace, it returns a true if it exists or not. If it does not exist, then it's actually going to run a Terraform workspace new. It's going to create that Terraform workspace environment. It makes sense in a second. We need a little bit of more talking. What we do then is a Terraform init, of course, because if it's a new workspace, it needs to be initialized, right? So we do that. What we do after that is a Terraform workspace select. So basically select dev, select ACC in my current scenario. What we do then is a Terraform plan with the variable files, like I showed you. Per environment we have a file, right? This here, ACC tfvars, dev.tfvars. We call that here, so Terraform plan. In that specific workspace, we want to run that with that variables. If there are no changes and action equals apply, we just write the output. Otherwise, we're actually going to run it, run Terraform. And this time we don't want to answer with yes, right? We do an auto approve, so we prevent that behavior. And what we do here is specify the variable files. That's it, okay? So 38 lines of code, not that bad, right? Create some flexibility. And now, how do we use the script? So let's first start by running this wrapper. I said wrapper. And what we can do is specify a target environment, and I will do just autocomplete of this. And let's go here. So minus target environment def, right? Makes sense. Target environment def or ACC, right? So we're going to do def first. Then I have a Terra state file. So where does my deployment live? And I must be honest, I still have the resource group, so I want to delete that first. Hang on. Okay, the resource group is gone. So let's go back to the wrapper here. So we're going to target the development environment. Which state we're going to apply? That is not the demo vnet, but basically the resource group. So that's demo o2 dash resource group. You see this folder here where these files live in, and then as an action that will be an apply, right? And yeah, so let's see what happens when we run this small wrapper script and see if we what we get. We get an error actually. I honestly don't know. So you already saw some things happening on the left as well on the folder structure level. I will show that in a second. Let's first try to run this. And I'm also going to deploy the acceptance resource group. So it's running an apply now, as you can see. So it did all the stuff, and I think checking out the specific workspace environment as well. Let's see what we get. So it will be created. We get the resource group. It's all expected. And there we have it. So if we go back to Azure and we refresh our browser here, you should have a resource group. Not yet. Let's refresh again. Sometimes it takes some time. I found that out a couple of times already. It took some time, I think, but it seems we have the resource group here. Let's see again. Let's refresh here because somehow it didn't display here. I don't know why that is actually. It's interesting as well. No, it doesn't get displayed here. Yeah, we have a resource group here, dev, and let's go back to the same wrapper script and just run it with different input and just change the environment itself, right? And then it will also dynamically use the different TFR files, ACC TFRs instead of dev. So we should get a new resource group when we run this called ACC. Let's run this. And then after that we're going to inspect the file system on the Terraform state level. It's still running. You can see it will create the resource group ACC managed by me. And here we have it. It's ready. And let's check in Azure in the portal if we see it there as well. So when we check Azure, we now see ACC and dev resource group. If I open that, we have some tags. Let's change one of the tags just to show you, I guess, that it works. So let's go to the ACC and we call this tag tag mark. We don't care much about that. Let's try to run the same script again for the ACC. For the ACC environment, let's run the Terraform state again. And after that, after this modification, you're going to see that being reflected inside of Azure. If we have checked that, we're going back to the file system configuration and see what is all changed in the back and how different is Terraform behaving now with workspaces. Bear with me. As you can see here, it will change this tag to tag mark. You can see that there as well. And I now go in Azure. I guess you believe me. Not sure how quick that gets reflected. Otherwise, we check that in a couple of seconds. It should reflect there any time now. Sometimes it takes a little, as you can see now. Tag mark. So it has been updated. And so that's it. So now we deployed 2 resource groups in 2 environments with 1 piece of code. And the only thing we did is create 2 TFR files to manage the flexibility. And now the Terraform state file part. As you can see here on the left side, when we first deployed the demo o2 RG without the TFR files, we got files here inside of the state was basically in the root folder. And that basically meant that we could not have any other environment using that same code because it would conflict, right? But what we have now, this .terraform, you already saw that with the provider and the environment stuff. But this is the interesting part. So what we now have is a terraform.tfstate.d directory. And inside of that directory, you have a subdirectory ACC and dev. And those are the workspaces that were created here with the logic in the script, right? If it doesn't exist, it creates a workspace. Otherwise, it checks it out the workspace and then runs the Terraform plan, basically inside of this folder. And what we now have is for dev and ACC, we have different Terraform state files. And because we run dev a couple of times, we also have some sort of history or untracked, whatever, it doesn't matter. But for now, this is fine. As you can see, so we have one for ACC and one for development now. And basically this approach, and we're going to do that for the other parts as well. We're going to deploy the VNet in the same manner, the storage account, the key vault as such. I just wanted to show you this example that brings more flexibility, I think, compared to the default approach. And I think this is it for that's it for the second video. And in the third video, we come back to this wrapper, we come back to this TFRs files again for the VNet and for the storage. So at some point it will make sense as well. If you not already understand, you know, it's not that complicated, I would say. So yeah, I would say stay tuned for demo 03. You see it already here, a sneak preview on the left. That's the VNet deployment. So that will be the next video I'm going to prepare. So yeah, okay. Thanks for watching. See ya.